Hello, Charles. It's great to have this opportunity to talk to you. We're, as you know, running a conference series this year with the theme of values. Values in the sense of how organisations talk about them, how people talk about them, and of course the insights I particularly want from you is what you understand value to mean, and how often I've heard you speak most articulately about how we often confuse value and think it means something else. So if you could share with us your thoughts and insights, as I say, on that. Sorry?
I was going to say, Kurt, what was this?
I think the flash just, it doesn't, it's a Chinese flash. I don't know.
He knows the question, we can go straight to the answer.
You don't want the question on the
well,
tape?
No, you've got
so I'll let it run, yeah?
I'll let
So
it
let
run.
it run, let it run. Okay.
So then,
Well, we have a major problem with values. I'm not sure that as a culture we really know what values are. Mostly we think of values as goods, in other words, good things. So it's better to have $1 million or £1 million than $500,000. And that it's better for America, for example, to be more secure than less secure. So we finish up with America having 10 times more weapons than the next country in the world, which is China. And does our security, more security still, make us any more secure? Well, I don't think it does. The ability to blow up the world 100 times isn't really very much more secure than the ability to blow up the world once. So the idea that values are cumulative, that the more you have of something the better, is, I think, entirely false. Values are differences. They're differences on a mental continuum. So you have a stoplight that says stop, and you have a light that says go, and you move continuously between stop and go, and you can't lose the go and you can't lose the stop, otherwise the system doesn't work. This is the same with all values as far as I'm concerned. There is courage and there is caution. If you want to save somebody from drowning, you shouldn't jump into the water after them because they're going to hug you to death, okay? You reach them, they're afraid of drowning, they'll hug you and you'll both drown. So if you want to save somebody from drowning, you don't just need courage, you need caution. You need a particular blend of courage and caution. And this is true of all values in general. We advance science by being skeptical, by doubting, but we doubt not in order to go on doubting and in the end up with despair. We doubt in order to make ourselves more certain. We test a proposition, and doubt and certainty work together. Rules and exceptions work together. We all create rules, but hardly have we made a rule, we find that it doesn't work as we expect it to. There are people who are left out, there are injustices, so we have to make exceptions, and the exceptions will improve the rules. And the rules will cover more and more exceptions as they get better and better. So the dialectic, the movement from rules to exceptions, from courage to caution, from doubt to certainty, is how values develop. What we have to elevate is the entire continuum between stop and go, between doubt and certainty, between even things that sound good and bad, like love and hate. The more you love somebody, the more you'll hate certain things they do. If they're unfaithful to you or they had an affair or something, all your love turns into rage, and that's the way things are. That's the way values work.
Well, we undertook some research and surveyed over 1,000 managers, asking them what values that were espoused in their organisations. And the one that came out top across all sectors was respect. What do you think these organisations are trying to tell us by making respect so prominent?
Well, I'd say respect is less a value than a meta value. A meta value is a value about values. So respect comes from the Latin respicere, to look at. And And when you respect somebody, you look at them very carefully and you listen to them very carefully and you take on board what they have to say. And that is a reconciliation of opposites. You and me, I respect you, I hear what you say, and I am influenced by what you say. So respect is what holds values together. It holds the continuum together. The same with, for example, equality. We are not all equal. Some people are better than others, and some people are much better than others at certain things. But the reason we treat people as equals is not because they are exactly the same as us, but because we want to get the best out of them. So equality is a meta value. It is a way of eliciting from other people the best they have to give. And it is a process value. And respect is a process value too. So when you respect somebody, you elicit from them the most they have to tell you and the most they have to give and the biggest contribution they can make.
Another value that seemed to be very popular and that many of the individuals who completed the survey mentioned was that of accountability. Again, what do you think organisations and individuals are trying to tell us when they revere accountability?
Well, again, accountability is a meta value. It is a way of holding two opposites together, and accountability holds freedom and responsibility together. You can exercise freedom, you can have a great initiative, you can be self-interested, you can create new, you can get rich, but in the end you are responsible and accountable, not only to shareholders but to all the people who've helped you, all your stakeholders. So accountability is another word for taking responsibility, and in a country that sort of worships freedom and gets very excited about being free, accountability becomes very important because you are accountable for the way you use your freedom. And unless freedom and responsibility are in balance, you're going to get serious pathology within a culture. If you use your freedom to exploit other people, and that happens quite a lot, unfortunately, then you're in trouble.
Well, the majority of the respondents were UK-based. If you look around at the corporate landscape, would you see these values actually being played out, even if they are meta-values? Do we see a high level of respect? Do we see a high acceptance of accountability? Or is it more an aspiration on the part of these companies?
I think it's more a comment on what is missing. I suspect people say they want a value because they don't have enough of it. And they think it needs to qualify, and I think accountability needs to qualify freedom and initiative or whatever, or assertion or self-interest. And I might say the definition of a value shifts depending on what its opposite is. So self-assertion versus accountability has a slightly different meaning from freedom versus accountability. So basically values are defined by their opposites. There can be no up without down, there can be no high without low. Lots and lots of the words we use are contrasts, and you assume when somebody is speaking what the contrast is. You take it for granted, and that's how you process what the person is trying to say.
Listening recently at one of our conferences to somebody from Glassdoor, actually it was from Mike Fetters from Glassdoor, and you'll be familiar with with Glassdoor. They were one of the first to report on, to publish what employees thought about the organisation that they worked for. I think originally they started out as a sort of open space for people to complain when they felt badly treated, but they're much more than that now, and they're getting some terrific insights into what makes people choose the employers to take the jobs that they take. And they say 4 out of 5 of job applicants look at the values of an organisation. Now, they'll be the values that are published on their website, but picking up on what you've just said, if actually we're striving for accountability because we don't think we have enough of it, What are they basing those choices on, do you think?
Well, I think they are saying to themselves, would I like to work for an organisation that is more accountable than other organisations? So my feeling is that people pronounce values. Usually we think that values are things, and they're not things, they're contrasts. So we have the wrong idea about values, but people who think that values are things say, well, I think this thing is missing in most of the organisations I study. They don't care for their stakeholders. They're trying to make money for shareholders. And when I go home in the evening, and my wife or husband says, "Do you have a good day?" Do you tell him I've made a lot of money for shareholders? I mean, it doesn't make much sense. You get great pleasure out of helping and serving customers and leaving them better off and leaving them richer and more satisfied than they were before. And that's how we get our thrills. So I think people looking at value statements saying, is this organisation extolling something that is missing in most organisations? And I think that's the reaction, that's the response of people looking at a value statement. But most value statements are simply cliches, sort of hopeful, you know. And I was at a conference when somebody read out a value statement, and he said, "Whose company do you think this is?" And about 100 people put up their hands because they all thought it was their company or another company like it. So they spend hours and hours producing a value statement, and then it's just a load of cliches, of, you know, courage, hope, patience, etc. And you know, when we name our female children sort of hope and patience and prudence and things like that, as if they were walking, talking single values, and that's nonsense.
Just while we're talking about young people, we hear constantly that the youth of today are looking for different things. They're looking for meaning in their work. You've obviously had a long career engaging with young people. Are you hearing different things? Have you been hearing different things about what they want from work?
I don't, unfortunately, meet many young people. Most of my work is with managers of mature years, but it makes sense. Meaning comes about when we connect things, okay? Meaninglessness is disconnection. So when we connect courage with caution and succeed in saving somebody from drowning, when we connect doubt with certainty and establish a new principle in science, this is meaningful. So it is the connection between values that creates meaning. Meaning is the ability, and creative meaning especially, is the ability to connect things that were previously apart. Nobody thought of putting these two ideas together, and when you do, you've achieved something creative.
Now, I know you've worked all over the world, and have you noticed differences in how different cultures approach even talking about values? And which cultures really stand out to you as ones that understand their values? They're not meaningless rhetoric, but they're lived and breathed within the organisations.
Yes, well, you know, in the West especially, the logical positivists say that values are without testable meaning. They are like the taste buds on our tongues. They are nonsense. So they have no scientific validity. They're, quote, not objective. You know, the Chinese and the Japanese don't even have a word for objective. It doesn't occur to them that women should be treated as sex objects, or for that matter, anyone, anywhere should be treated as if they were dead. But we have this word, and it comes from the fact that we were the first people to discover the Newtonian paradigm. Newton invented it, and this made us build great machines, and we could produce what people wanted, and it enabled us to produce steel ships, and we shot Chinese junks out of the water during the Opium Wars. So thanks to machines, we were more powerful than anybody else. We controlled the seas, and we produced factories where goods that people wanted could be. But this made us worship objectivity. The Japanese don't have a word for it. The Japanese, when asked what objective means, they say it's kaien kaiteki. Kaien kaiteki means the guest's point of view. See, a guest comes into a room and he sees lots of different people, and they're all separate. They're all objects.